Case 1. Shay Groves, Havant, Hampshire, England, July 2022. Shay Groves was 27 years old. Her bedroom walls were decorated with framed photographs of serial killers and murderers. She had books about notorious criminals. She had a collection of decorative knives. She was, by every account of those who knew her, deeply absorbed in true crime culture, the study of how killers operated, how investigations worked, how crime scenes were processed. On July 17, 2022, she used that knowledge operationally. Groves had been in a relationship with 25-year-old Frankie Fitzgerald, a young father of two. The relationship was described by those who knew them as volatile and obsessive, a dynamic that had become increasingly dominated by Groves's jealousy and her monitoring of Fitzgerald's movements and communications. On the day of the murder, the couple had filmed themselves together earlier in the evening. Fitzgerald was asleep in Groves's bedroom at her residence in Havant when she stabbed him 22 times with one of the decorative knives from her collection. She did not call police. Instead, she called a friend on video chat and, with apparent calm, showed them Fitzgerald's lifeless body. She told the friend she had snapped. She told them she had used the knife on him multiple times. Then she sent 3 video clips, which she claimed showed Fitzgerald had been violent and abusive toward her. The friend called the authorities. Investigators working the case quickly identified the problems with Groves's self-defense narrative. She had been tracking Fitzgerald's phone and movements. Evidence showed that she had become convinced he was messaging what she believed was a 13-year-old girl on social media, a conclusion that turned out to be entirely wrong. The individual was 17 years old and had already been blocked by Fitzgerald before the night of the murder. The original video footage from the camera the couple had set up was recovered. It did not show Fitzgerald attacking Groves. The text messages she presented had been manipulated. Prosecutors at Winchester Crown Court built a case that went beyond the immediate act and into the architecture of premeditation. Her familiarity with crime scene investigation, her understanding of how false narratives are constructed, and her deliberate attempt to fabricate evidence of abuse after the killing. Groves pleaded not guilty and maintained her self-defense claim throughout the trial. The jury rejected it entirely. She was convicted of murder on February 22, 2023, and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years. She received the sentence without visible emotion. Frankie Fitzgerald's parents described their son as a shining light, a kind and beautiful person who was a young father with his life ahead of him. Their victim impact statement described the specific, irreplaceable loss of watching their son's children grow up without him. As of April 2025, Groves has served approximately 2 years of her minimum term. She remains incarcerated in a UK prison with 21 years remaining before parole eligibility. If you're new here, welcome to Daily Crime Archive. This channel covers the cases that deserve more than a headline. We go deep on the investigation, the legal proceedings, the victim's stories, and the questions that 2-minute news segments never have time to answer. We are a new channel, and every subscription matters directly. If you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, hit the button and ring the bell right now. Drop a comment as you watch. Tell us which of these cases you followed, and which ones you're hearing covered in this kind of depth for the first time. Now, Case 2. Natalie Bennett, Liverpool, England, March 2023. On the evening of March 11, 2023, neighbors in Carl Lane East in Croxteth, Liverpool, reported hearing a heated argument from the residence of 47-year-old Natalie Bennett and her 24-year-old boyfriend, Casey Anderson. Approximately an hour later, Casey appeared at a neighbor's door. He was visibly injured and in severe distress. He managed to contact emergency services. His words repeated, fragmentary, the call of a person whose body is already losing the fight. I'm dying. He could not name who had harmed him. Natalie then took the phone. She told the operator that Casey had multiple stab wounds. She claimed she didn't know where they had come from. She said he had arrived at her home already injured. When Merseyside police officers arrived, Casey had a deep stab wound affecting vital organs. He was transported to Aintree Hospital and underwent emergency surgery. He died of his injuries just 1 week before his 25th birthday. The investigation dismantled Bennett's account systematically. Ring doorbell footage from a neighboring property captured Bennett with a knife near Casey's head, footage that directly contradicted the claim that he had arrived already injured. Inside her home, officers found a sharp smell of cleaning fluids and several sharp implements in the kitchen sink, appearing to have recently been washed. During Casey's dying moments on the street, while he was trying to reach the emergency operator, Bennett had called him a little rat. She was charged with murder and pleaded not guilty at Liverpool Crown Court, maintaining her claim of self-defense. On October 4, 2023, after more than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously convicted her. She showed no emotion as the verdict was delivered. On November 10, 2023, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years. As the sentence was read, Bennett was led to the cells. She gave a thumbs up to her father in the public gallery. Judge Dennis Watson KC told her that no sentence could restore Casey's life, and that her actions had caused the waste of a human life. As of April 2025, Bennett has served approximately 1 year and 5 months of her minimum term. Case 3. Sharon Carr. Camberley, Surrey, England, 1992. Sharon Louise Carr was 12 years old when she murdered Katie Ratcliffe. Katie was 18, an apprentice hairdresser walking home from a nightclub in Camberley, Surrey. Carr selected her at random in the early hours of 1992, attacked her, and inflicted more than 30 stab wounds. She and an accomplice left Katie's body near a cemetery. The following day, young boys found her. The original investigation produced no arrest. The nature of the crime scene led investigators to assume the perpetrator was an adult male. Carr was not identified. 2 years later, Carr attacked a fellow student in a toilet at Collingwood College Comprehensive School, stabbing her without provocation or warning. The attack stopped only because other students entered the room. The victim later told investigators that Carr had been smiling throughout. She appeared happy. Carr was arrested and taken for medical assessment. During that process, she attempted to assault nursing staff. While held in a young offenders institution following the school attack, Carr began documenting her crimes. In phone calls to relatives, she boasted about Katie Ratcliffe's murder. In her prison diary, she wrote entries that included, "If only I could do it to you again. I was born to be a murderer." On the 4-year anniversary of the murder, she wrote in her diary, "Respect to Katie Ratcliffe, 4 years ago today." When questioned about the murder, Carr confessed. She described specific details about the injuries that the investigation had deliberately withheld from public knowledge, details that only the person who inflicted them could have known. In March 1997, at the age of 17, Sharon Carr was convicted of Katie Ratcliffe's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 14 years. The presiding judge noted the exceptional nature of the case, given that she had been 12 years old at the time of the offense. She left the dock smiling. As of April 2025, Carr has served approximately 28 years of her life sentence. She has passed her minimum tariff by 14 years. She remains incarcerated. Parole applications have been denied, with assessments consistently finding her too mentally unstable for release. Reports describe continued violent ideation in custody. She is 45 years old. Case 4. Bailey Haywood. Bicester, Oxfordshire, England, March 2024. On March 13, 2024, at approximately 12:20 p.m., emergency services received a call reporting that a man had been injured at an address on Mulberry Road in Bicester. Officers arrived to find 45-year-old Dale Bond in his living room with multiple stab wounds. Despite immediate emergency treatment, including specialist support from the air ambulance, Bond was pronounced dead at the scene. Police drove to a nearby address in Bicester, and found 23-year-old Bailey Haywood with blood-stained clothing. She was arrested on suspicion of murder. At trial at Oxford Crown Court, Haywood's defense argued she had acted in self-defense. The prosecution presented evidence that Bond had not attacked her. The jury rejected the self-defense argument and convicted her of murder. What makes this case unusual is not the crime or the verdict, but what has not followed them. Haywood has declined to speak about the murder after the trial. No motive has been publicly established. The prosecution did not advance a specific motive theory that has been reported. The precise reason Bailey Haywood killed Dale Bond remains, as of 2025, unexplained, known only to her. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years and 181 days. She will be eligible for parole consideration in December 2041, when she will be 41 years old. As of April 2025, Haywood has served approximately 6 months of her minimum term. Case 5. Gemma Mitchell. Wembley and Devon, England, June 2021. Gemma Mitchell had a first-class degree in human sciences from King's College London and had been awarded the Hamilton Prize for Anatomical Excellence, a recognition of her exceptional skill in the dissection of the human body. She was, academically, a person of significant scientific accomplishment. She was also unemployed, unregistered to practice osteopathy in the UK, and living in a dilapidated £4 million family home in Willesden, northwest London, which she shared with her mother and sister. The house required extensive renovation. A contractor had defrauded the family of £230,000. In August 2020, Mitchell met 67-year-old Mi-Wen Chong at their church. Chong was originally from Kuala Lumpur and had lived in London for 30 years. Church members described her as someone with a sweet, childlike nature. She had agreed to give Mitchell £200,000 to help with the renovation costs. Then Chong changed her mind. She withdrew the offer and told Mitchell to sell the house and use the money instead. On June 11, 2021, Mitchell visited Chong's home in Wembley carrying a large blue suitcase. CCTV footage captured her arriving with the suitcase and leaving hours later with it visibly heavier. Investigators believe Mitchell murdered Chong during that visit and placed her body in the suitcase. She then transported the suitcase to her garden in Willesden, where it remained for 2 weeks. On June 26, Mitchell hired a car and drove more than 200 miles to Salcombe in Devon, where she disposed of Chong's body in a wooded area. Parts of the remains were discovered by holidaymakers the following day. Additional remains were found nearby 4 days later. Before the discovery, Chong had been reported missing by her lodger. Mitchell told police Chong had gone to visit friends by the sea. Meanwhile, Mitchell had stolen documents from Chong's home and forged a will indicating that Chong had left 95% of her £700,000 estate to Mitchell for the house renovation, with the remaining 5% to Mitchell's mother. At trial at the Old Bailey beginning in October 2022, Mitchell pleaded not guilty. The jury found her guilty after 7 hours of deliberation on October 28, 2022. Judge Richard Marks KC sentenced her to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years, describing her conduct as extremely devious and highlighting her complete absence of remorse. As of April 2025, Mitchell has served approximately 2 years and 6 months of her minimum term. She will not be eligible for parole until October 2056, when she will be 72 years old. 5 cases in 15 more to cover. We're moving through a wide range of crimes. A true crime obsessive who became the killer. A doorbell camera that dismantled a self-defense claim. A 12-year-old who wasn't caught for 2 years. A murder whose motive has never been explained. And a forensic anatomist who killed over a withdrawn donation. Daily Crime Archive is a new channel, and your subscription directly affects how many people find this content. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the button and the bell. Drop a comment. Tell us which of these cases you followed when it was in the news. We read everything. 15 more. Let's keep going. Case 6. Virginia McCullough, Chelmsford, Essex. England, 2019. Virginia McCullough was 31 years old and living with her elderly parents, John and Lois, in the family home in Chelmsford, Essex. Her parents were aging and increasingly dependent on her. She was their primary caregiver. She was also stealing from them. Over time, she had accumulated debts exceeding £60,000. She had been misappropriating funds from her parents' accounts. She had spent money on online gambling platforms. By mid-2019, she had squandered more than £150,000, and the financial situation was reaching a point where exposure was inevitable. In June 2019, McCullough dissolved prescription medications into drinks she prepared for her parents. Her 70-year-old father, John, took the drink. He died in his sleep. Her 71-year-old mother, Lois, did not drink the prepared mixture. The following morning, Lois woke up and moved around the house without yet understanding what had happened to her husband. Recognizing that her mother was alive and would eventually discover the truth, McCullough attacked Lois with a hammer and then repeatedly stabbed her. Lois died. McCullough then went to a local hospital to have her own injuries treated. She then returned home and began the concealment process. What followed over the next 4.5 years was one of the most sustained acts of concealment documented in recent British criminal history. John's remains were enclosed in a makeshift tomb, built from masonry blocks and wooden panels within the home. Lois's body was placed in an upstairs wardrobe. McCullough continued to live in the house. She continued to collect her parents' pension payments. She used their credit cards. She called her parents' bank and, impersonating her mother, requested a new credit card and PIN. She impersonated her father in written communications to maintain the appearance that both were still alive. For 4.5 years, she managed this. Siblings did not visit. Welfare checks were not triggered. No one looked closely enough. In September 2023, concerns from family members and medical professionals prompted Essex police to conduct a welfare check. Officers entered the residence. They found the remains. McCullough was at the house. As she was arrested, she told officers, "I did know this day would come eventually. Cheer up, at least you've caught the bad guy." She pleaded guilty in July 2024 to 2 counts of murder. In the sentencing hearing that followed, the judge highlighted the premeditated nature of the killings, the sustained financial fraud, and the 4.5-year concealment of the bodies of her own parents in the home where she continued to live. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 36 years before parole eligibility. As of April 2025, McCullough has served approximately 6 months of her life sentence. She has a minimum of 35 years and 6 months remaining before parole consideration. Case 7. Lucy Letby. Chester, England, 2015 to 2016. Between June 2015 and June 2016, the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital experienced an unprecedented and statistically inexplicable increase in infant deaths and sudden collapses. Medical staff noticed. Pediatric consultants raised concerns internally. An internal review was conducted. That review identified something specific. Lucy Letby, a 33-year-old neonatal nurse, was the only member of staff who had been present at every one of the incidents in question. The hospital's response to that finding was not immediate referral to police. It was a series of internal management actions that allowed Letby to continue working. Consultant pediatricians who pushed for police involvement were, by multiple accounts, pressured and sidelined. It was not until May 2017, 2 years after the first concerns were raised, that the Cheshire Constabulary was formally notified, and Operation Hummingbird was launched. The investigation that followed was one of the most extensive in modern British policing. Investigators reviewed infant medical records and autopsy reports across the entire relevant period. They identified patterns: injections of air into the bloodstream, insulin administration, deliberate overfeeding, physical assault, that were consistent across multiple cases and consistently present when Letby was on shift. Letby was arrested, released on bail, and rearrested twice as additional evidence emerged over several years. Her trial began in October 2022 at Manchester Crown Court. The prosecution presented evidence of her involvement in the murders of 7 children and the attempted murders of 6 others. The case ran for over a year, one of the longest criminal trials in British legal history. In August 2023, the jury found her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a whole life order, making her one of only a very small number of women in UK history to receive such a sentence. Following the conviction, a public inquiry was established to examine the institutional failures at the Countess of Chester Hospital, the delays, the silencing of concerned pediatricians, and the 2-year gap between the first internal identification of Letby as a suspect and the police referral. More recently, a new development has emerged, suggesting that Letby may have harmed additional children beyond those for which she was convicted. Further investigations are ongoing. As of April 2025, Letby has served approximately 1 year and 8 months of her whole life sentence. She will never be released. Case 8. Karen Vamplew. Newark, Nottinghamshire, England, December 2021. Elizabeth Ann Vamplew was 77 years old. She had limited mobility and significant hearing impairments. She required daily caregiver visits and lived alone in her bungalow at Eaton Court in Newark, Nottinghamshire. She was known, by those who cared for her and knew her, as a woman who smoked cigarettes inside her home. Her daughter-in-law, Karen Vamplew, was her primary caregiver. Karen had been draining Elizabeth's bank account. Over a period of months, she had reduced the balance from £27,000 to £105. The bank had restricted transactions to £5 per day due to suspicious activity, effectively cutting off Karen's access to further funds. On December 14, 2021, Karen accompanied Elizabeth to the bank in an attempt to have the transaction restrictions lifted. The request was unsuccessful. That evening, Karen returned to Elizabeth's home twice. CCTV footage captured her first visit. She had parked away from the property, rather than at her usual spot. She was wearing a black hoodie. She entered the bungalow and, investigators later determined, deliberately set fire to Elizabeth's bed, while Elizabeth was asleep using a naked flame. She then left. She returned later and called emergency services, presenting herself as the person who had discovered the fire. Elizabeth Vamplew died of severe burns and smoke inhalation. Karen was arrested on December 17, 2021, 2 days after Elizabeth's death. She was released due to insufficient evidence at that point. The investigation continued. Additional evidence was gathered. She was rearrested and charged with murder. At trial at Leicester Crown Court, the prosecution presented the CCTV footage, the financial records documenting the account drainage, and the forensic determination that the fire had been deliberately started, ruling out the cigarette accident narrative that had initially been considered. The jury found Karen Vamplew guilty of murder. On May 20, 2024, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 32 years before parole eligibility. As of April 2025, she has served approximately 11 months of her sentence. Case 9. Mahek Bukhari and Ansreen Bukhari. Leicester, England, February 2022. Mahek Bukhari was a 24-year-old social media influencer in Leicester with a significant following. Her mother, Ansreen Bukhari, was 46 years old. Ansreen had been conducting an extramarital affair with 21-year-old Saqib Hussain. When she attempted to end the relationship, Saqib threatened to send explicit material to her husband unless she continued the affair. It was blackmail. Mahek and Ansreen's response to this blackmail was to plan a confrontation, not through legal channels, but through violence. In messages between them, Mahek told her mother she would arrange for Saqib to be assaulted. She told Saqib directly, "I am sorry that this year you'll be gone." They recruited 5 associates, arranged a meeting with Saqib at a Tesco car park in Leicester, under the pretense of a financial settlement, and arrived in convoy. Saqib was not alone. His friend, 21-year-old Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin, was with him. When the two men recognized they had been set up, they attempted to flee in their vehicle. A high-speed chase followed, with the pursuing vehicles reaching speeds approaching 100 miles per hour. Saqib made a desperate 999 call during the chase, reporting that he and his friend were being pursued by people wearing balaclavas, who were ramming them. While still on the call, their car was forced off the road. It struck a tree and caught fire. Both Saqib and Mohammed died at the scene. The pursuing vehicles left. The investigation, led by Leicestershire Police, used CCTV footage and mobile phone data to piece together the convoy's movements before, during, and after the chase. Mehek was captured on footage, lying to officers about her whereabouts during questioning. The full group was arrested and charged. After a 3-month trial at Leicester Crown Court, Mehek Bukhari was convicted of 2 counts of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 31 years and 8 months. Ansreen Bukhari was convicted and sentenced to life with a minimum term of 26 years and 9 months. Their 5 associates received varying sentences. As of April 2025, Mehek Bukhari has served approximately 1 year and 7 months of her minimum term. Case 10. Veronique John. Stoke-on-Trent, England, June 2023. On June 10, 2023, emergency services in Stoke-on-Trent received a call from 50-year-old Veronique John. She told the operator that she had just murdered her children. The day before the call, Veronique had assaulted her husband Nathan with a piece of wood following suspicions that he was having an affair. She was arrested and released the same day with a community resolution notice. Hours after her release, she returned home to Flax Street and attacked her children, 11-year-old Ethan and 7-year-old Elizabeth. Ethan sustained more than 20 stab wounds. Elizabeth suffered severe injuries. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. After killing her children, Veronique went to a car wash where her husband Nathan worked and attacked him with the knife. Nathan survived. She then returned home and called emergency services. When police arrived, she told them, "If you have a gun, shoot me. I am not a monster." He was going to take them from me. The investigation revealed she had conducted an internet search before the attack, asking whether a foreigner could be charged with murder in the United Kingdom. Her stated reason for killing her children was that her husband intended to take them from her. She told investigators she had done it because she loved them, to protect them. Due to a diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, Veronique John was found unfit to plead in a standard trial. A trial of facts was conducted at Nottingham Crown Court. In July 2024, the jury concluded that she had committed the acts as charged. She was given an indefinite hospital order under the Mental Health Act and is currently held at Rampton High Security Hospital in Nottinghamshire. The duration of her confinement is subject to ongoing mental health assessments and risk evaluations. As of April 2025, she has been held under the hospital order for approximately 9 months. 10 cases covered. 10 more to go. We've covered a nursing staff killer on a whole life sentence, a caregiver who set fire to the bed of the elderly woman she was supposed to protect, a mother-daughter pair whose blackmail response ended in a 100 miles per hour fatal car chase, and a woman who killed her children and told police it was because she loved them. Daily Crime Archive exists to cover these cases with the depth they deserve. If you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Check the pinned comment after the video for full current status on every case. 10 more cases. Let's finish. Case 11. Ashana Strudwick. West London, England, 2021 to 2022. Shakira Spencer was 35 years old and lived in Ealing, West London. People who knew her described her as a lovable, sociable woman, someone who was socially trusting in ways that, in retrospect, made her vulnerable. She befriended her neighbor Ashana Strudwick, who introduced her to her partner Shay Pendlebury and their associate Lisa Richardson. Between early 2021 and September 2022, the three of them systematically dismantled Shakira Spencer's life. They isolated her from her family and friends. They took control of her finances. They forced her to perform domestic labor at all hours. They fed her ketchup sachets, her diet so restricted that her body size dropped from a UK size 16 to a size 6. The physical abuse included scalding her feet and sustained beatings. The psychological abuse was constant and calculated. On September 12, 2022, following a particularly brutal assault at Strudwick's address, Shakira was transported in the boot of a car to her own flat. She was confined to a cupboard and left there. Approximately 2 weeks later, on September 25th, neighbors noticed maggots emerging from under Shakira Spencer's front door. They contacted authorities. Officers entered the flat and found her body. The extent of decomposition made it impossible to determine the precise date of death. Identification required dental records. The investigation was opened when a relative of Pendlebury's, to whom he had confessed his role in the killing, contacted police. Digital evidence, including messages and videos, documented the abuse in detail. Recordings showing the three defendants' pleasure in what they were doing to Shakira. At trial at the Old Bailey, all three were convicted of murder and preventing a lawful burial. In February 2024, Strudwick, Pendlebury, and Richardson were each sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years. They will not be eligible for parole consideration until 2058. As of April 2025, they have each served approximately 1 year and 2 months of their sentences. Case 12. Christina Robinson, Ushaw Moor, County Durham, England, 2023. Christina Robinson was 30 years old and lived in Ushaw Moor, near Durham, with her 3-year-old son Dwalania. In the weeks preceding his death, Dwalania was subjected to sustained physical abuse. Robinson had adopted beliefs connected to a religious group whose teachings she interpreted as endorsing corporal punishment. Approximately 18 days before his death, she forced Dwalania into scalding water as punishment for soiling himself. The resulting burns covered more than 20% of his body, severe injuries to his lower body that would, under any normal circumstances, have required immediate medical attention. Robinson did not seek medical attention. She treated the burns with ointments and bandages purchased online. Days later, she carried out another physical assault. Emergency services were called to their home. Despite their efforts, Dwalania was pronounced dead. The autopsy documented more than 60 individual wounds on his body. Robinson admitted to using a cane to discipline her son, claiming it was religiously endorsed correction. She said she now realized she had been misguided. She said she could not seek medical attention after the scalding because she was ashamed. Charged with murder and 4 counts of child cruelty, including the scalding, failure to seek medical care, physical punishment with the cane, and leaving Dwalania alone for extended periods. She was tried at Newcastle Crown Court. In the final stages of the trial, she dismissed her legal team and represented herself. The jury found her guilty on all charges. In May 2024, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with the minimum term of 25 years. As of April 2025, Robinson has served approximately 11 months of her life sentence. Case 13. Stephanie Langley, Maidstone, Kent, England, September 2023. The Horse and Hounds Public House in Maidstone, Kent, was run by 54-year-old Matthew Bryant. On the evening of September 11, 2023, Stephanie Langley, 55 years old, and Matthew's former sister-in-law, with whom he had had minimal contact for more than 2 decades, appeared in the pub. She told a customer at the bar to get a drink while he was still alive, nodding toward Bryant. She told Bryant directly, "You're dead tonight." Bryant stepped back and called police. Langley left the premises, retrieved a kitchen knife from her car, returned, and knocked the phone from Bryant's hand as he was mid-call with emergency services. She stabbed him 3 times. Passers-by intervened. Paramedics arrived. Despite their efforts, Matthew Bryant died at the scene. Stephanie Langley was arrested shortly after. In police interviews, she expressed no remorse. She told investigators she was glad he was dead. At trial at Maidstone Crown Court, she attempted to justify the killing by raising historical grievances against Bryant, allegations his family contested, and which the evidence did not support. The prosecution described the attack as impulsive in execution, but deliberate and intentional in character. She had gone to the pub with a stated intention. She had warned him, she had retrieved a weapon, and she had returned. Bryant's widow and mother delivered victim impact statements that described the destruction of their family's life. The jury convicted Langley of murder. In May 2024, she was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 24 years. As of April 2025, she has served approximately 11 months of her sentence. Case 14. Eltiona, Skana. Bolton, Greater Manchester, England, March 2020. On March 22, 2020, Mother's Day in the United Kingdom, 7-year-old Emily Jones was in Queen's Park in Bolton with her father Mark and her mother Sarah. Emily was on her scooter. She spotted her mother nearby and moved toward her. As she scooted past a wooden bench where 30-year-old Eltiona Skana was seated, Skana attacked her with a craft knife she had purchased earlier that day. Emily was rushed to Salford Royal Hospital. She died of her injuries. Skana was detained at the scene by members of the public until police arrived. Investigation revealed a documented history of mental illness and non-compliance with prescribed medication. She had come to the United Kingdom from Albania, arriving in the back of a lorry, and had provided false information in her asylum application. She was initially charged with murder. She later pleaded guilty to manslaughter on grounds of diminished responsibility. In December 2020, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 8 years to be served in a high-security hospital. In January 2021, a sentencing miscalculation was identified, and the minimum term was revised upward to 10 years and 8 months. Her subsequent appeal seeking a hospital order with restrictions was dismissed. Emily Jones's father, Mark, stated publicly that Skana had been granted asylum despite the Home Office being told she had lied in her application. He said she would not have been in the country if the system had functioned as it should have. As of April 2025, Skana has served approximately 4 years and 4 months of her minimum term. A minimum of 6 years and 4 months remains. Case 15. Alice Wood, Road Heath, Cheshire, England, May 2022. Alice Wood was 24 years old, a philosophy student at Manchester University who had been awarded a scholarship for a part-time research master's degree at Cambridge. She and her fiancé Ryan Watson, also 24, attended a birthday party in Hanley, Stoke-on-Trent on the evening of May 6, 2022. Ryan worked as a support worker for a brain injury charity, and the party was for one of the service users. During the event, Alice observed Ryan in conversation with another woman and accused him of flirting. Both had been drinking heavily. They drove home together, Alice driving despite being over the legal limit, with 61 micrograms of alcohol per 100 milliliters of breath against a legal limit of 35. CCTV footage captured what happened when they arrived home at approximately 11:20 p.m. An argument began. Alice got into her Ford Fiesta. She reversed toward Ryan, narrowly missing him. She drove at him again. He was thrown onto the bonnet and struck his head on the windscreen. She drove at him a third time, this time dragging him approximately 158 meters under the vehicle. She stopped. She went to a nearby resident and said, "Please call an ambulance. I think I've run over my boyfriend." Ryan Watson was pronounced dead at the scene. Cause of death: crush asphyxiation. During her transportation to the police station, Wood said to officers, "It's fine. I deserve it." At trial at Chester Crown Court, Wood maintained the killing was a tragic accident. The jury found her actions were deliberate and intentional. She was convicted of murder. On February 2, 2024, She was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years. The sentencing judge told her, "Prison may be hard for you, Alice Wood, but you only have yourself to blame for the situation you now find yourself in." As of April 2025, Wood has served approximately 1 year and 2 months of her minimum term. Case 16. Lauren Harris, Colwyn Bay, Conwy, North Wales, November 2023. David Mark Wilcox was 65 years old. He had allowed Lauren Harris, 29, to move into his home in Colwyn Bay in 2023 after they became friends. He wanted to help her. She repaid that help by draining his bank account over the months she lived with him. When Harris began a relationship with 43-year-old David Webster and befriended a man named Thomas Whitley, she invited them to Wilcox's home for an evening. An argument started. The situation escalated into a violent assault. Harris stabbed David Wilcox twice. Webster inflicted additional violence, including striking him with a vodka bottle. After the assault, Webster took Wilcox's watch from his wrist. The three left the scene in Wilcox's own car. Harris then attempted to withdraw cash from 2 ATMs using Wilcox's bank cards, attempting to pay for drugs with money taken from the account of the man she had just stabbed and left on his living room floor. The car was crashed and abandoned shortly afterward. David Wilcox was found by police, unconscious in his living room. He died of his injuries. The investigation linked all three through DNA evidence, CCTV footage of Harris at the ATMs, and the confession Pendlebury had made to a relative. At Mold Crown Court, Harris denied involvement. As she was led into the dock during the trial, she began singing Shania Twain's Man. I Feel Like a Woman. She showed no remorse throughout the proceedings. The jury found Harris and Webster guilty of murder. In August 2024, Harris was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 25 years. Webster received a minimum of 23 years. As of April 2025, Harris has served approximately 8 months of her sentence. She will be 54 years old before parole consideration. Case 17. Rebecca Moore, Sheffield, South Yorkshire, England, March 2024. On the night of March 9, 2024, 24-year-old Sakat Ali was at a friend's flat in the Netherthorpe area of Sheffield. He received a call from an unknown number from Rebecca Moore, 25. She told him to meet her at Ponderosa Park, offering to sell him drugs. He did not know it was a setup. When he arrived, 2 teenagers were waiting. Barney Griffin, 17, and Jack Douglas, 16, were both armed with machetes. They attacked Ali repeatedly as he pleaded with them to stop. He died of his injuries shortly after 5 a.m. The investigation used clothing found at Griffin's address, forensic evidence linking blood to the scene, and CCTV tracking the movements of all three before and after the attack. Moore was apprehended quickly and gave false identifying information to officers before her real identity was confirmed. Griffin and Douglas pleaded guilty to murder. Moore denied the charges. After a 16-day trial at Sheffield Crown Court, the jury found her guilty. She was convicted on November 11, 2024, and sentenced on November 28 to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 15 years. She will be 40 years old at parole eligibility. As of April 2025, Moore has served approximately 5 months of her minimum term. Case 18. Lisa Elwood, Wakefield, West Yorkshire, England, August 2023. It was Lisa Elwood's 40th birthday. She and her husband Ryan had gone out to celebrate the Loop Set Hotel, then the Blind Pig Pub in Wakefield City Centre. CCTV from the pub showed them arriving together, appearing happy. At some point during the evening they argued. They left separately. Lisa arrived home approximately 10 minutes after Ryan. She was heavily intoxicated. CCTV on the way home showed her falling before she reached the front door. An argument restarted in the kitchen. Lisa retrieved a kitchen knife and inflicted a fatal stab wound. Ryan was pronounced dead at 11:45 p.m. When Lisa called emergency services, She was described as rude and hostile toward the operator, using profanity while her husband lay dying. When officers arrived, she initially claimed to have found Ryan in that state and suggested their 16-year-old daughter might have been involved. Inconsistencies in her account led to her arrest. At trial at Leeds Crown Court, the couple's turbulent relationship, marked by mutual accusations of infidelity and documented instances of domestic discord, was heard in evidence. Lisa's defense highlighted alcohol dependency and a claimed absence of memory of the events. The jury found her guilty of murder. On March 13, 2024, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 16 years. As of April 2025, Lisa Elwood has served approximately 1 year and 1 month of her minimum term. Case 19. Christine Ray, Braunton, Devon, England, August 2022. Christine Ray was 70 years old. Her husband, Ian, 72, kept horses on their small holding in Braunton, Devon, a property valued at approximately £800,000. On August 21, 2022, an argument erupted between them over the sale of a piece of land on the property. Christine wanted to sell it to fund a private eye operation. Ian opposed the sale. During the dispute, Christine retrieved a 12.5-inch knife and plunged it into Ian's back with sufficient force to cause severe internal damage. Ian, despite the catastrophic injury, managed to walk approximately 100 yards, pleading with Christine to remove the knife as he went, before collapsing and dying from the wound. Christine was arrested at the property without resistance. She claimed self-defense and alleged years of physical, psychological, and emotional abuse by Ian. At trial at Exeter Crown Court, the prosecution characterized her as the aggressor, presenting evidence of previous incidents in which she had allegedly stabbed Ian and subjected him to other deliberate acts, including adding a substance to his tea and placing chili powder in his undergarments. After deliberating for just over 3 hours, the jury found Christine Ray guilty of murder. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years on March 22, 2024. As of April 2025, she has served approximately 1 year and 1 month of her minimum term. Case 20. Anne-Marie Burrows, Peterborough, England, October 2023. Anne-Marie Burrows was 52 years old. Paul Knowles was 56, a Royal Navy veteran. The two were friends who met regularly at his flat on Friars Court in Woodston, Peterborough, to drink and talk. On October 26, 2023, during one of these meetings, Burrows assaulted Knowles with severe violence. She inflicted significant injuries to his face, eyes, and neck. According to the prosecution, she forced a sock down his throat, obstructing his airway. He died of asphyxiation. Burrows left the flat, taking his bank card, which she used at a local shop afterward. On October 30th, she called police and told them she had killed a man, but refused to provide further details, stating she was just having a nightmare. Several days later, she called again and provided Knowles' identity and the address. Officers found his body. Burrows was arrested. She claimed self-defense, alleging Knowles had threatened her with a bottle. The prosecution's evidence, including the nature and extent of his injuries and the sock used as a weapon, was presented as inconsistent with any defensive account. On July 19, 2024, a jury at Cambridge Crown Court found her guilty of murder. She was sentenced on July 23 to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years. 20 cases. England, Wales, Scotland, and the occasional reach beyond British borders when the crimes connected to UK communities or were committed by individuals present in the UK. The victims span every category: young men in relationships, elderly parents, a toddler, a 7-year-old girl on her scooter on Mother's Day, newborn infants in a neonatal unit, a pub landlord who called police as he was being threatened, a vulnerable neighbor who took someone in. The perpetrators span every category too: teenagers and pensioners. women with first-class degrees, and women with addiction histories, women in long-term relationships, and women who killed strangers, women who were immediately arrested, and women who sustained concealment for 4.5 years. What they share is not a profile. There is no single profile. What they share is the coverage gap. These are cases that generated significant UK headlines at the time of the verdict and then largely receded from public attention. Some of them will be familiar to people who follow British true crime closely. Most will be new in this level of detail. That detail matters. The victims deserve it. The investigations deserve scrutiny. The systemic questions. Why was Letby allowed to continue working for 2 years after pediatricians raised concerns? Why was the Virginia McCullough welfare check not triggered for 4.5 years? Why was Eltiona Scana granted asylum despite documented false statements in her application? Deserve to be asked directly and repeatedly. Daily Crime Archive exists to ask them. 20 cases. 150 minutes. Thank you for staying with this one. It's a long episode because these cases deserve the time. Daily Crime Archive is new. Your subscription directly determines how many people find this content. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and check the pinned comment below for a complete status update on every person covered today. Sentences, parole dates, current incarceration status. Drop a comment. Tell us which of these 20 cases you want us to do a full dedicated standalone episode on. We read every comment, and it shapes what we cover next. We'll see you in the next one.